a fair bit in the marketplace, especially from an Adelaide perspective, as to how the market has going. Is it being affected as much as the Eastern Seaboard, and why did the Eastern Seaboard get to the position they're in? That ties sort of nicely with the Banking Royal Commission, and probably a step before that is when the banks had to realign their lending out to investors and pull that back. They were limited in the amount of money they could lend out to investors, so there was a little effect on the market then. And then following that, the Royal Commission came out having a look at basically the lending practices of the big four banks. And then from that, the big banks clearly were under the spotlight. So they had a really good hard look at their lending practices and probably got a little bit conservative in who they lend to and how much money they were prepared
maybe pull back
to lend out. And that's the sort of the feel, the feedback we're getting. That's probably what happened. The banks could have lent out a fair bit more money than they actually did. So that sort of moves us in to this year then, where the banks haven't been able to lend out as much money as they would have liked, and the time to get finance approved, on average, the feedback's coming, it may be taking an extra 8 hours to get a finance deal approved.
Just like getting through the paperwork.
Just getting through the paperwork, which could add a couple of weeks. So I suppose then what happens to that? There would be more buyers in the market who have been declined finance. Because they're not a profitable client or as profitable as another client. The time it's taking, if you want to get your finance approved, a lot longer. That may give you some lack of confidence to move ahead and buy. Why is the bank or my broker asking me as many questions?
Trying to put the screws on the market a little bit.
Yeah, so that definitely meant that we've seen a slowdown, especially on the Eastern Seaboard. But coming off, if they've had a 15-20% growth, a bit of year on year, well, markets, peak and markets trough. So all of that came to a point where the marketplace over in Sydney and Melbourne slowed down. The Adelaide marketplace seemed to be really, really resistant to that, and that's probably a little bit reflective of the fact that if we're only having a 2 or 3% year-on-year growth, and there is a bit of a downturn, well, that means we'll probably come back to a 1 or 2% growth. So that looks like, from an Australian point of view, wow, Adelaide's very resistant. But then the other thing that brings is more interest to Adelaide, which we've seen.
Interstate interest.
Interstate interest coming, whether you want to actually move here from a livability point of view or an affordability point of view from an investor standpoint. So with all of that, we had some conversations with some agents over in Sydney only a week ago. And what they're starting to see is a bounce back to the marketplace. One of their top auctioneers, for example, sold 12 out of 13 auctions. So 12 out of 13 were sold under the hammer, no negotiation needed. So there's some signs that the marketplace is returning. As you said, if interest rates get reduced after the election, maybe a month or two potentially,